Les habla René Salgado, presidente de la iniciativa EmpreSomos Centroamérica. Nos pueden encontrar en empresomos.org. Bienvenidos a este evento virtual que es parte de nuestro programa EmpreSomos, Conectividad Emprendedora Centroamérica, que estamos implementando en conjunto con CLACS de INCAE y CAMTIC. Hemos invitado a los coeditores del libro cuyo título en español sería Ecosistemas Emprendedores en Ciudades y Regiones, publicado por la prestigiosa Oxford University Press. Aunque el video de la conversación en inglés en YouTube contiene subtítulos en este idioma, estos pueden ser configurados para ser leídos en español presionando el botón subtítulos y haciendo la correspondiente selección. Como cortesía para nuestros invitados, seguiremos el evento en inglés. Hello, this is René Salgado, President of the EmpreSomos Central America Initiative. You may find us at empresomos.org. Welcome to this virtual event, which is part of our EmpreSomos Central America Entrepreneurial Connectivity Program that we are implementing in conjunction with CLACS of INCAE and CAMTIC. The focus of this event is the recent book, Entrepreneurial Ecosystems in Cities and Regions, published by the prestigious Oxford University Press. Some years ago, it was believed that isolated actions such as training MSMS leaders or sporadically injecting financial resources or venture capital in a geographic region were sufficient to initiate and maintain entrepreneurial growth and innovation, both conventional and social, and even to strengthen the entrepreneurial fabric. These beliefs still persist and sometimes predominate in the culture of some international financial organizations or foundations. Yet, the understanding is shifting. It is increasingly recognized that just as a whole set of conditions and support structures are required to properly educate a child, a similar principle applies to the development of opportunity and creative entrepreneurship. This recognition underscores the importance of comprehensive support structures. The book, Entrepreneurial Ecosystems in Cities and Regions, is a significant contribution to the modern trend, and it brings together studies from academics around the world to analyze this concept. This international perspective helps to understand how innovative entrepreneurship happens and can drive development at a regional or global scale. The book highlights the importance of considering factors specific to each city or region when evaluating the strengths of entrepreneurial ecosystems, as these factors can lead to different types of enterprising activities depending upon the specific settings. In other words, the idea is not to try to boldly imitate, say, Tel Aviv or Bangalore or Silicon Valley. The international collaboration between authors from these different parts of the world has allowed the production of a book with an enriched regional analysis of how the concept of ecosystems can help better understand how entrepreneurship fosters economic development. The book is made of 27 chapters and is divided in 3 broad sections: the emergence of entrepreneurial ecosystems, the evolution of business ecosystems, and the future of entrepreneurial ecosystems. Today at EmpreSomos, we have the privilege of having 4 of the 5 books editors who will discuss some of the key lessons and takeaways of this important effort and how the insights gained can guide the actions of civil society organizations and entities interested in fostering economic development in their cities or regions. I am sure that their perspectives will illuminate and inspire some of the practical applications and strategic initiatives that can be derived from the book's findings. We have Christina Theodoraki, an HDR professor of entrepreneurship, TBS education in Toulouse, France, a visiting scholar at the Nottingham Business School, and a senior research fellow at the Institute for Development Strategies at the University of Indiana. She earned her doctorate at the Sorbonne Business School. Daniel Prokop is a senior lecturer in economics geography at Cardiff University. He is the author of a recent scholarly paper and also a book on university entrepreneurial ecosystems and spin-off companies, and has written more than a dozen articles in reference journals on the subject of entrepreneurship and ecosystems, including International Small Business Journal, Entrepreneurship and Regional Development, Regional Studies, and Urban Studies. Robert Huggins is professor of economic geography and director of the Cities Research Center at the School of Geography and Planning, Cardiff University, and the director of Cardiff University's Cities Research Center. He is also a visiting fellow at the University of Oxford's Kellogg College. Fumi Kitakawa is chair in regional economic development at Birmingham Business School, University of Birmingham. She has a track record of local, national, and international research projects and publications on university entrepreneurship and regional development. Her research has centered on the role of higher education institutions in regional development and entrepreneurial ecosystems. We welcome all of them to these important discussions, and they have the floor.
Thank you very much, Rene. And thank you for those kind words. And thank you for the opportunity to have this podcast today so we can introduce our book, which we're very proud of, we must say. And we're proud of it because, as you say, it's international in its scope. It's large. You may think 5 editors is quite a big team, but we really needed 5 in order to manage this process. And it's a process that's taken place over about 6 years, more than 6 years probably. And it started off just when really entrepreneurial ecosystems were starting to emerge as a concept that was starting to gain traction, both theoretically from a scholarly perspective and also from a policy perspective as well. And Fumi was very instrumental at the beginning that she was awarded some funding for a project looking at entrepreneurial ecosystems within the UK and Japanese context. And there was some work undertaken there, and she very kindly invited myself and Daniel to join the team, along with others. And that really began to sort of get some momentum in a way, and thinking about how we could proceed to actually develop further the concept. And from there stemmed out a number of seminars, workshops, and we could see there was a strong interest internationally from people to present papers, different case studies, looking at largely at cities, regions, and universities and other organizations in other places to get a deeper understanding of entrepreneurial ecosystems and thinking about how they evolve, how they emerge, and how they may change in the future. And at that point in time, there was a couple of other volumes already in existence that looked at entrepreneurial ecosystems, but often looking at particular parts. And there didn't seem to be maybe a comprehensive book that really focused on all the issues and all the different stages in terms of its development. So we had some discussions and we thought, well, maybe there's a gap in the market for something that is more comprehensive. But of course, once you started thinking about something that's comprehensive, it makes it bigger in its way. And as you say, it's actually 28 chapters, I think. And we thought, well, maybe there's going to be some interest. And we as we said, we had some workshops. So we asked some people, would they be interested in contributing to this edited volume? And basically, everyone said yes. Everyone was interested in being part of this project, and everyone was interested in doing something new. And all these chapters are new. Nothing is recycled from existing work. They're fresh contributions. And our job really as the editors was try to knit this together into something coherent in a way. And once we did that, we put together a proposal, and we thought, well, we'll try Oxford University Press to see whether they would be interested. They're not always interested maybe in edited volumes, but we approached them and they were keen. We revised our proposal and we sort of tweaked with the setup of the book, and then we've pretty much set. And then we sort of given some time then for the chapters to come in, for those to be edited, etc., and to ensure there's a common thread and a coherent thread throughout. And over a couple of years, it took some time. Finally, the book was published just this March. So it's only been out for just over 8 weeks in a way. And we're delighted to put this podcast together and to tell you a little bit more about the book. I just want to try the second slide down. So as you can see, there's 5 of us. Piers unfortunately couldn't make the podcast today, And in terms of the way we put the organization, the editorial team together, myself and Piers tried to oversee the whole project. And then Fumi, Daniel, and Christina, they were looking at particular aspects. And again, our three themes in terms of emergence, evolution, and future. And Fumi took case of the emergence, so where they evolve, where they emerge in a way. Daniel looking at the evolution, looking at the change and the dynamics. And then Christine had the very interesting section part of the book, looking at the future and thinking about the future in terms of the change in ecosystems, but thinking about what changes may take place in terms of conceptualizing ecosystems and how we can connect ecosystems maybe to other paradigms and other concepts from a range of different areas, really, in disciplines around economic geography, management science, psychology in a way, and sociology, and also even philosophy in a way. And we try to pull these chapters together. And we do feel that at this point in time, we are now in May, if you listen to this, May 2024, we do believe that it's cutting edge in terms of its contributions, both from a theoretical and from an empirical perspective as well. So I say we got a mass of chapters, 28 chapters, largely looking at particular areas, particular cities and regions. I say group by these particular three themes. And I say we kick off in terms of the emergence, which was led by Fumi. So I think at that point in time, I'll hand over to Fumi.
Right. Okay. Hello, everyone. And thanks very much, first of all, to René for the opportunity to speak to academic colleagues and entrepreneur communities in South America. And as Rob said, it's just fantastic to have reached this end of journey, but also beginning of the new conversation with the global communities and share the outcome of the book through this podcast. So, I have been responsible, particularly for the part one of the edited volume, but I just wanted to add a few words as to what Rob talked about in terms of the history of the book. So yeah, the journey started back in 2018 and 19 with colleagues in the UK and Japan. So it was really about the time entrepreneurial ecosystem sort of started to emerge, as Rob mentioned. So as you see in part one chapters, some of the colleagues from Scotland, such as Ben Spiegel, Colin Mason, and then colleagues from Cardiff University, Rob and Dan, and a couple of others from English universities came together. And then we started to working with colleagues in Japan, and it was interesting because around 2019, it was a time when the Japanese government started to use the word entrepreneurial ecosystem, startup hubs. So that was an interesting policy turn around that time. So we seems to have hit interesting timing to engage with both academic policy as well as business communities throughout the workshop we organize as a collective team. So first of all, it was a very big collective effort throughout the time. And then COVID-19 hit. That was a really interesting point in time. It was a difficult time, but it was an interesting time for us, particularly when Dan and Rob and some of the colleagues at Cardiff University tried to set up the first workshop in person, but that was exactly March 2020. So we changed the whole thing into online webinar, and it was, now it doesn't sound surprising at all, but at that point it was a quite key decision to turn it into a whole online setting. But in a sense, that's really helped to make this book project possible. It turned into a really international endeavor. It started from the UK scholars communities, along with policies and business communities, with the Japanese counterparts, and then it expanded into Australia, US, some South American chapters, and all over the world, really, including China, Japan, and the rest of the Europe as well. So you see the sort of outcome sort of hit by different external conditions, but I think it turned out to be a really interesting collaboration across the countries and really all over the world. So part one, if you could move on to the next slide, I think we're going to have an overview of the chapters. As I mentioned, the initial collaborator, partners in crime, were Colin Mason and Ben Spiegel, you see in this sort of section, and they really are one of the sort of scholars who contributed to the concept of entrepreneurial ecosystem, and they sort of highlight with the case of Canada. Actually, both chapters by Colin and Ben and his colleague from China. Mei-Ling Huang talked about the Canadian sort of regions, how the entrepreneurial ecosystem sort of went through dynamic changes over time. And then the part one is really highlighting a number of different contexts, diversity of the cities and regions across the world. And the key message here is really one size doesn't fit all. How entrepreneurial ecosystem is conditioned by different places, different institutional, cultural, and historical factors, which is highlighted really strongly by the chapter by Michael Fritsch and colleagues in Germany, looking at two different entrepreneurial ecosystems over time. And then another sort of key theme which you see in part one in terms of the emergence of the entrepreneurial ecosystem is a role of different actors, for example, universities. And Christina and David Aldrich looks at the university-based entrepreneurial ecosystem in chapter 8. Also, another colleagues from Canada, Celie and Shona, looks at the urban innovation and the role of a university in that specific context. So uses sort of overlapping themes and context. And I also might sort of mention one of the key actor in entrepreneurial ecosystem, which is the government at national level, local level, and sort of regional levels, which is highlighted by the chapter Marianne Feldman and Junho Oh. So this is a kind of opening up section talking about what the entrepreneurial ecosystem concept means, where it comes from, how that sort of interact with other academic concepts, and how empirically diverse the landscape sort of unfolds over the time. So the key thing which seems to be coming up in part one is the dynamics and changes of the ecosystem, which is sort of taken up by the next section, part one, by the organized by Dan Procock, who will talk about it more. So yeah, just sort of sum up. Part one, look at the emergence of the concept, both conceptually and as an empirical phenomenon, and it opens up the whole edited volume by emphasizing the place-specific diversity, institutional, cultural context, and again, it showed that how heterogeneous and diverse the landscape we are looking at, and one size doesn't fit all, but you will find some common themes and issues throughout the rest of the book. So I'm going to pass on to Dan as a next section editor. Thank you.
Thank you, Fumi. And indeed, this has been quite a journey for all of us in terms of getting to this point to producing this book. And I think all these conversations we had across the years, they helped us develop the concept, think about it from different perspectives, because I remember when we were in Japan and we're talking to policymakers, and I suddenly learned that there's a bottom-up and top-down approach to entrepreneurial ecosystems, and the literature thus far was only talking about bottom-up approaches. But in Japan, we found out that the government actually can play a more instrumental role and can actually be more involved and actually cares. So that was really eye-opening, and I think these conversations, they need to be had among different communities of scholars from different countries, because this is where we notice and learn about the entrepreneurial ecosystems and how they actually function and how they could function in different places. So my task was to oversee the evolutionary part of the book. We had 10 chapters, over 20 co-authors working on those chapters. So it's, you know, every section has been quite chunky of the book, and this evolutionary aspects, they have been emerging in the literature since Mackenmayer's paper on, you know, the first evolutionary life cycle model of entrepreneurial ecosystems. I think it was published back in 2016. There has been work going on about the evolutionary aspects, but they haven't been really developed yet fully. So what we thought this book could do is actually devote more space to each of the very important aspects. And evolutionary aspects are incredibly important because it's not just about developing an entrepreneurial ecosystem, but it's also about observing what's happening to it, what's happening to the actors within it over time. And whether they're selecting the right path to develop into the future, and whether that path is going to be sustainable for the economic development of those places. Loads of extremely important connected topics in terms of not just entrepreneurial ecosystems, but also economic development of places. So just to give a short overview of those 10 chapters, we have contributions from all over the world again. We have contributions from Japan, UK, US, Netherlands, Germany, and so on. So it is a very international chapter again. We had some really great work, and just to stress, you know, Fumi's work with Hiroyuki Okamura and Hiro Izushi was really important to show how the governance systems evolve and government policy evolves over the longer period of time in terms of entrepreneurial ecosystems and entrepreneurship policies. And this is quite an instrumental and rare kind of piece of work, because governance doesn't get enough attention in the literature about entrepreneurial ecosystems. And to talk about the evolutionary aspect of governance, to see how policies change, it's a really difficult thing to really track how policies change. There's so much going on, so much noise in policy. So that's a very great contribution for those interested in the governance aspects. I'm sure colleagues in Central America will be interested in some of those things. Then we have two first chapters devoted to the European sort of perspective, but looking at it from two different aspects. So Mirella, Niels's, and Eric's chapter looks at the structural change in entrepreneurial ecosystems. And Laszlo's, Esteban's, and Eva's chapter looks at the benefit of the doubt approach, which doesn't tell much to many colleagues, but they have published a couple more papers on this. The key aspect of it is basically how to help policymakers make the right decisions and measure the entrepreneurial ecosystems over time in a way that it allows them to actually open up some views as to what to change, which elements to influence in entrepreneurial ecosystems in order to make some change. So that's you know, useful. We have some policy aspects coming out of this book now. And then we have a nice couple of chapters that are covering the different cases of entrepreneurial ecosystems across different countries. So we have it one with 5 different ecosystems in life science sectors by Jana and Bo. And then we have Silicon Valley, and Katarina and Michaela, they compare Silicon Valley to Berlin, and how Silicon Valley is different, how it works differently. And hopefully it helps us to stress that the fact that ecosystems are very unique beings, and they need to be looked at separately. And how they evolve is also very different. We cannot compare one evolutionary cycle of one ecosystem to the other without understanding the context within which this happens. And then we have great work by Yasuyuki about the evolution of St. Louis. entrepreneurial ecosystem. And René knows, yes, he does great work, and he does focus on those peripheral ecosystems. He has great interest in looking not at just those big name ecosystems like Silicon Valley, but also trying to show how other places can find their own way in terms of stimulating entrepreneurship activity. And then we have further chapters that look at the industrial composition and entrepreneurial heritage. So looking at the history aspects and how they play a role in shaping up future of the entrepreneurial ecosystems, looking towards the social capital, so the network theory, and how that is important in the evolution of entrepreneurial ecosystems. And finally, a very conceptual, but incredibly important. At first, it was very difficult for me to get my head around it. A chapter by Andrew Johnson about the universities and entrepreneurial ecosystems and how they mutually interact, which is where I think he tried to capture the fact that it's not that the ecosystem just evolves in one way and everyone evolves together. It's also that these actors influence evolution of each other within the ecosystem. It's not just that everything goes one way, it's all interrelated and complex and full of complex dynamics. So if I was to sum up what's going on there and what potential readers, hopefully readers in Central America can learn from it, I think there's a great range of examples of ecosystems, but also a great range of topics that are important in terms of covering the elements of entrepreneurial ecosystems, like the role of institutions, the role of inclusivity in entrepreneurial ecosystems, covered by Neil Lee and his colleague, which no one is really, there isn't enough being covered about inclusivity in entrepreneurial ecosystems. How they're not about those top unicorns only. It's about wider entrepreneurial activities within the ecosystem. And it's also about stressing that the evolutionary paths are not linear. They're unique to every ecosystem, and they're not linear. Not everyone is going to be on a nice straight pathway upwards. There may be loads of different forces pulling the trajectory of evolution into different spaces. So if the future readers, if the readers of this book will remember that, we encourage to read. If you want to know about something about the evolution, this is the book to read. I'll hand you over to Christina, who will talk about a very complex topic about the future of entrepreneurial ecosystems.
Thank you very much, Daniel. And I would like to start by thanking for hosting us, EmpreSomos, and René for giving us this opportunity to talk and spread also these ideas and this information about this book toward the Central America and reach all places and potentially interesting persons that could find valuable these insights of this book. I would like to stress that May 2024 was for us a celebration month, a celebration day, because we have the opportunity to have the official launch of this book at Oxford University. And as Rob was stressing earlier, it's a long-term 6-year project that comes to be now a reality. And we have now this book that we can bring us together around this entrepreneurial ecosystem topic. Also, I would like to thank my fellow co-editors of this book because it's a big effort, and also it allows to make a reality and bring together all these insights from different perspectives or different views, but also make this book a reality today. So if I want to characterize this book, I would like to use 3 words. First of all, it's a collective book. We have been we're trying to build 28 chapters all around different topics on this entrepreneurial ecosystem concept. So it's collective, inclusive, and critical. So we're trying to be as inclusive as possible, to include the different contexts, include also different scholars, different authors all over the world, top scholars, young scholars, but also include all the ecosystem stakeholders and actors. We're trying to combine both research discussion between researchers and practitioners, funders, different actors that engage in the ecosystem concept. And we're also trying to include cases all over the world, and trying to give voice on how the different perceptions you can see and understand entrepreneurial ecosystem. And finally, the last part is we needed a critical view. What is next? So we wanted to build a state of the art of what we know, where we are today. There is a discussion, but actually we wanted also to be critical. What is going to be the next step? From my point of view, and to present myself, because I also I want to stress that it's important to know from where we come from. I would like to share with our listeners that I defended the first PhD on entrepreneurial ecosystems. And as I was saying, this early emergence of the topic has been extremely difficult to engage different actors, researchers and policymakers. Now, we see that more and more people engage on this topic. It became a buzzword. But in the early beginning, the research discussion has been extremely critical. And we have been developing this discussion all over these years, but we also needed books to clarify where we are today. And as a researcher that's struggling to emerge on this topic, I saw a lot of books, sometimes that we're using this fancy term, entrepreneurial ecosystem, but I wanted the book to describe where we are today, where we come from, because it is important also to stress how this topic emerged all these years, where we are currently, there is a discussion, and also what we need to do to continue to evolve this topic. So this, we're trying to shape it all around this book, so it become the book on entrepreneurial ecosystem in cities and regions. So this third part will be the most challenging part of this book. We know, as Fumi described, the emergence, this history. Daniel, he described the evolution of this topic, how it evolved. And now we wanted this third part, trying to understand what will be the future of entrepreneurship, how we're gonna dive in this very umbrella concept, what is behind entrepreneurial ecosystem. And of course, okay, today we arrive in an understanding of entrepreneurial ecosystem, but what is next? So how we can become also critical about what we know already, and how we can renew this concept and provide an interesting discussion, and also from these findings and the case studies, an interesting discussion of the next research, but also how we can provide valuable insights to policymakers to build entrepreneurial ecosystem in cities and regions. So our goal today is also to provide a discussion between researchers, and also how we can help practitioners implement all of our learnings. So this third part will include 9 chapters, more than 26 co-authors, 9 figures, and 12 tables. So I would like also to thank all the authors that contribute in this book, because their contribution make this book special. So because they allowed to provide insight and models and have a discussion from a multidisciplinary view of this concept. So if we can go inside of these 9 chapters, we can see, first of all, some critical chapters that are trying to stress that the entrepreneurial ecosystem is a concept, but also it started as a metaphor. So we should not forget where we start from. And also we would like to respond a little bit on the first criticism we have been facing as entrepreneurial ecosystem scholars. Just to remember, in the beginning, the ecosystem term has been introduced in, it is a biology term. So it comes from biology, and then it was introduced in management in 1993 in Harvard's Business Review as a metaphor to explain the interaction, the complex interaction between businesses trying to create value together within a place. So we see that the ecosystem is a metaphor, and we introduce it in entrepreneurship to explain that cities can be framed as an ecosystem. Today, we also have some critical papers trying to go back to the forest metaphor to see how forests evolve and how we can have a learning to see how cities can implement this metaphor. However, the first researchers were saying, don't study on this concept because it is just a metaphor and not a theory. So we need to have critical views on how we can implement the entrepreneurial ecosystem metaphor to provide insights to build the entrepreneurial cities. So we see this chapter with Richard Harrison and Augusto Rocha. We have also different theories trying to understand how the different contributions come from different theories, including the complex system theories and sociology with the chapter of Martin and his college. We also needed to stress that the entrepreneurial ecosystem has been described as the entrepreneurial context. It is the context where enterprises operate or different actors. And we need to go also to expand the research discussion to a critical point about its delimitation. Where we found the boundaries? Can we go beyond the geographical boundaries? So here we'll find also some global perspectives trying to understand the different contexts, can be different countries. But also another critical point reflects the role of keystone player or the role of governance. Who governs the entrepreneurial ecosystem? Should it be top-down governance or bottom-up? Should we give the power to entrepreneurs, or should we wait for governance to give and provide the infrastructure to build entrepreneurial ecosystem? So here we'll have some viewpoints related to the institutional infrastructure. For example, I give reference to the paper of Agata and Heli. We can also find the conceptualization of entrepreneurial ecosystem and the role of the governance perspective and how they become resilient, how they can evolve over time, not only to have their glory moment, but continue to evolve and become resilient over time. We're also trying to find the role of culture and how the actors can behave within the ecosystem to navigate this complex system and improve their position within the system. We have also some historical perspective coming from regional innovation systems, or even we can have a critical viewpoint with the clusters. How we can make an entrepreneurial ecosystem more efficient and can improve over time. We also need to develop the skills we need to develop. What's the learning? How we can develop skills to navigate in the ecosystem. And then how policymakers can provide a critical viewpoint about policies that are implemented in different places, and we can provide some constructive recommendations to improving these entrepreneurial policies. And for example, we have included authors from OECD, for example, to provide some practical implication also and engage in this discussion. To sum up, the third chapter, it can provide a viewpoint on the dynamics, the state of the art of the entrepreneurial ecosystem concept and stream, but also provide some future avenues. So this third chapter will also provide some opening, some critical discussion. So we want to see in the next 5-10 years how the researchers and practitioners will contribute to this discussion. We also have challenged the spatial boundaries of the ecosystem. So we need now to go beyond and compare different contexts to have a learning, not only developed and successful entrepreneurial ecosystems, but also provide a critical discussion of the ecosystem that failed and what we can learn from this failure or emerging contexts that need different models that are more applicable to their context. We also need to stress the microdynamics and how we can create value for productive entrepreneurship, and how we can have different trajectories. Ecosystems are living entities and organizations within places. So we need to see, we don't only have one trajectory that has productive entrepreneurship, but we can have probably different ways to evolve over time. So this is some the key points of the third chapter. Trying to conclude from this book, we would like to share a very important promotion for our listeners who want to engage with this discussion. So this book, as I would like to repeat, you can see it's collective. It's not only an effort on some people, it's the effort of all the entrepreneurial ecosystem community that trying to engage in this book. Inclusive, we're trying to be as inclusive as possible, and you can see the 28 chapters that provide a big volume. So we're trying to provide as much case studies all over the world, and critical. So we open the discussion. So this is not one book that talks about entrepreneurial ecosystems. It is the book that talks about entrepreneurial ecosystem. And for me, it is a book that every ecosystem researcher and policymaker need to have. So it's a must-have book. So in order to give the opportunity to all of the scholars that want to engage in this book and the discussion, to read it, and also to engage with us in future, how we see the evolution of this field goes on. So we have created some videos. So in this slide, you can find some information on YouTube, some videos to describe this book. So we are grateful to EmpreSomos that also will spread this information. But we would like to provide a promotion code for 30% off. So you can find in this slide this code that gives you 30% off to buy this book from Oxford University Press website. So by using it, you can take 30% off, and we'll be more than happy to continue to engage and have more insights on how this field evolves. Thank you very much, Renee, and I give you the floor back to you.
Thank you. You want to share the screen again, Danielle? Stop sharing the screen. Great. Well, this was a great presentation. There is a lot to learn from this book. And what I like the most is that 30% discount, you see, for our Central American readers. This is really great. Truly appreciated. And indeed, I have many thanks to you, Christina, to Dan, to Rob, and to Professor Kitagawa for this, I would say, captivating and invigorating exchange of ideas on entrepreneurial ecosystems. I want to thank also our audience for their attention, and remind everyone that if they are interested in these stimulating knowledge exchanges, you are encouraged to follow us on EmpreSomos LinkedIn page and subscribe to our EmpreSomos YouTube channel. Thank you very, very much for this wonderful exchange to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Absolutely.
much.